Ladies and gentlemen, what is a rainbow baby? I didn't know the answer to this question, and I was presented with this scenario, a rainbow baby, this morning. What is a rainbow? I don't know what a rainbow baby is. I had a couple of guesses. As a Noahide, I should have a guess. My first guess, obviously, was it's a baby born to a Noahide couple. I mean, why would anybody be asking me about this, right? But it turned out that guess was wrong, so my next guess was it probably had something to do with the LGBTQ community. Maybe a lesbian couple being artificially inseminated to have a baby, and it's a rainbow baby. Or a gay couple hiring a surrogate mother to have a rainbow baby. Or perhaps a woman who's transitioning to be a man. Before she transitions, she wants to have her own baby. A rainbow baby. I think these are all pretty good ideas within our cultural context. However, they were all wrong. I'm Steve Perry, this is Biblical Anarchy, and today we're talking about the book Unseen Realm by Dr. Michael Heiser. What in the world does a rainbow baby have to do with his book Unseen Realm? The answer is nothing. It has nothing to do with his book. What I'm trying to get across to you is that to understand what I'm talking about when I say rainbow baby, you need to be aware of the cultural context. As it turns out, a woman who has suffered a miscarriage or a stillbirth or has given birth to a baby who died as an infant, when she has a baby thereafter, that baby is, for some reason, I'm not sure exactly why, but it's referred to as a rainbow baby. You need to be aware of this cultural context in order to understand what the term means. Likewise, when you read Tanakh, you need to be aware of the cultural context in which it was written. In order to be aware of that context, you need to be aware of other ancient writings. You need to be aware of how Hebrew poetry works. And in order to get that information, you need to spend years in college or learn from someone who has it. As a Noahide, I am recommending Dr. Michael Heiser's book, Unseen Realm, for other Noahides to read, despite the fact that he is a Christian. Why? Because he has that cultural knowledge of the ancient world, of Mesopotamia, of the Ugaritic texts, of other writings from that time period, of how the language works, how the poetry works, the ideas that these people had when they read it, what certain things would have meant to them based on their cultural setting. And he does a good job laying that out in Unseen Realm. Now, he's a Christian. So he's ultimately going to reinterpret those things and through the eyes of the New Testament writers. Though what he says is that New Testament writers repurpose. And I think that's a good term. They repurpose what they get in Tanakh. Now that's refreshing to a Noahide to read. Somebody admitting that this isn't what these things originally said, right? The authors like Matthew and Paul, or the author of Hebrews, who doesn't repurpose, he just rewrites. But they are certainly repurposing these scriptures. They're not using them for what they were originally intended to say. I think it's refreshing to see a Christian admit that. But he accepts the repurposing himself. Now, maybe he'll convince you. I don't know. He certainly didn't convince me. I think he's off base on that. I agree with the premise he lays out at the beginning of the book, that we need to read it in the cultural context of the author. So if you're reading Isaiah, you need to be looking at roughly 700 BCE, not first century Common Era, right? He does look at it through the eyes of 700 BCE, but then he comes back and reinterprets it through first century eyes. I get off the bus at that point. Now, I read his interpretation, and here's a quick overview if you want to know exactly, or I should say basically, if you want to know exactly what he thinks, get the book. But if you want to know basically what Dr. Michael Heiser believes, he believes that basically that the nations were divided up amongst divine beings. I don't want to use the term gods, even though that's the term that's used, but again, that's a term you have to understand through the language of Tanakh. So he believes that God kept Israel as his portion. The other nations were given to lesser divine beings. and that God's plan through Jesus is to bring all the nations back to himself. This is what he believes. Now, obviously, he believes in the New Testament version of Satan as opposed to the Tanakh version of Satan. And so God basically had to hide his plan. And this is why there are no obvious prophecies of Jesus in Tanakh. God had to hide his plan, or Satan would not have participated in the plan, thereby crucifying Jesus. This is, what he believes. Now, obviously, I get off the bus long before he's there. But I do think that this is a very valuable resource to help you read and understand Tanakh in the culture in which it was written. Now, if you're a Christian watching this video and you're saying, should I get it? Absolutely. I mean, it will really help you come to a better understanding. I don't care who you are. I think it's a good book to read. I highly recommend it because I like the process. The process is to understand the text within its cultural context. And again, he abandons that process for his own personal religious beliefs, but without spending, 4 years in seminary or 4 years in college trying to learn the ancient Middle Eastern context, we need resources. We need the writings of people who do understand, who have read those texts and literatures. Dr. John Walton is another good example of this type of, and he's a Christian as well. But this type of understanding of the ancient world and reading the Bible through that lens. So I recommend the things that these guys write simply because the information that you glean from their writings is really going to help you better understand Tanakh. I'm Steve Perry. This is Biblical Anarchy. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel. Don't just sit there, do something.